Good day, my name is Ranard Henfield and I am a community activist and I'm on the rise.
Hi everyone, I'm Shakia Danielle and I'm here today with Ranard Eric. Senator Ranard Eric, how are you?
I'm doing good, how are you?
I'm great. You know, it's an honor to meet you in person. I've seen you on social media, on the television, but it's an honor to be here in your presence. So thank you for having us today. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure's mine, but it's an honor to meet you. Congratulations on the show.
Thank you, thank you. So, you know, I've seen a lot of things that you've been involved in. You know, we had We March, you have the Our Carmichael Community Initiative. Let's just talk a little bit about your childhood and where you came from and who you are as a person.
All right, so I guess to give you a bit of a backdrop, I grew up on Windsor Lane with my family, and Windsor Lane, for those who don't know, would be that intersection of East Street and Wolf Road. There's Stevendale Primary School, and then there's Super Value. So I grew up in the apartment that still stands that's next to Super Value. Spent most of my time with my grandparents who owned the building and certain friends in the neighborhood. I learned most of my more valuable life lessons from my childhood. Like a lot of persons say when they got an adult, they learned valuable lessons. I actually learned my lessons in life very young. From my grandparents, I learned balance. And one grandparent was from Auckland, the other from Crooked Island. Two different personalities, one who would bend over backwards for people, and one who knew when to stop. One who you could insult and drag through the dirt, another one who stood up and said, that's it, don't say another word. And so I learned balance from my grandparents. I had certain friends in the neighborhood. To my right, I always remember as a child, was Tony and his sister, who a lot of persons know today as the lady that's on Bay Street in Rawson Square selling at this newsstand. And then to my left was a Haitian community, T-Boy and Kier, with some friends of mine who from childhood to now influenced my life so much. And then there's a friend of mine, Vidis, who lived on DeVoe Street. So between those 3 yards, I spent most of my childhood. I learned to stay humble. I learned that even though we were poor, we had a lot because we had community, we had people we can rely on, and we had our dreams. So I learned balance, I learned humility, and interestingly enough, by the time as I hit the 6th grade, I had a lot of persons older in the community saying that, you know, you're a leader, right? You know, you're the leader. And I didn't feel that way because just about every month I was being chased by the gangs in the neighborhood and rocks, bottles through our house. So I was far from the leader. But I always remember saying to my friends growing up, we're not going to join a gang. And I would listen to the older generation say that they came from the University of Wolf Road to refer to the area. And you'll have persons today on talk shows say, I grew up in the University of Wolf Road, meaning they grew up in the area. But our generation, we grew up at the intersection of the Rebellions, the Hoyas, and the Nike gang. It wasn't a University of Wolf Road to us. We grew up in an era of gang violence. And we had to, for my group of friends, resist that and chart a course for our future, learn to think long term. That's one of the things my grandfather taught me, to think long term.
So Ranard, where do you think your vision comes from? Because obviously you do have vision. Where do you think it comes from? You talk a lot about your background, growing up with your grandparents, your environment, the people that you would hang around growing up. Where was any of this fueled the vision that you have today?
Everything I've ever done as a teenager, a young adult, and up to this day has been fueled by my experiences in my childhood. I think I only know how to think long term. I have a lot of friends when we were teenagers and young adults who lived for Friday paycheck and what we're going to do on Saturday. But I was always thinking about, well, when I'm 30, I want to be breaking ground and I want to do X, Y, and Z. And I want to make a difference. I always knew from when I was younger that I couldn't live for the moment. I had to think long term. I had to see the bigger picture. So in everything that I got involved with is how do I make a difference? How do I make it better? Not how do I enjoy the moment for me. I mean, I have times when I enjoy myself, but it has always been to think long term.
Well, in Having vision and having, all these things in your mind to think long term, does it weigh you down at times? Because we all go through things in life. We all encounter situations in life, whether it's on our 9 to 5, whether it's at home, whatever it may be. And when we're planning out the course, when we're journaling, when we're jotting down, sometimes we can be so absent-minded from everything else because we just see tunnel vision into what it is that we want to do. Has there ever been a point where you're like, okay, I need to rest this down just for a minute, and I need to just zone out for a moment?
Yeah, I remember, and it's happened so many times. I think the first time I had that issue was at COB. So on the flyer you did, it said Vice President at University of the Bahamas. But obviously when I went there, it was College of the Bahamas, and I was Vice President of the Student Union Cobus. And I remember offering myself to be Vice President of Cobus at a time when school fees were going up, where there was no campus life, at a time when, as students at COB, we didn't feel like we were in an institution worthy of anything. And I offered myself as Cobus to be a part of a team to make a difference. We bucked head with a Miss Aubrey at the time every week. And then I think there was a Mr. Forbes, big guy. He was really nice, but we bucked head as well because we were trying to make a difference for students. And they represented the university, or the college at the time. And our only focus was our loyalty is to the students, and we are Cobus, and we want to make a difference. So we bucked heads. And sometimes you wondered, why bother? Why bother? And you would ask students to come out there and support, and they'd be like, well, they don't want to, but if I can get your school fees lower, it benefits all of you, thousands of people. And it was hard to get them, and then eventually you got to the point where they were coming out and they were supporting and they were offering ideas, and the number of senators in Cobus increased for persons with different fields offering their advice. I would jump to 2003, 2004, I came back home, and at the time I had left the Bahamas, leaving COB to go to Trinidad to start my law degree. I then went from Trinidad to England. And I got exposed to so many different nationalities and issues with their countries. And one issue that was constant or consistent was that each of those countries that I was exposed to, there was an issue of HIV and AIDS in that generation, or our generation. And I remember coming home and I decided I'm going to launch a regional Caribbean AIDS awareness initiative. And I started all my planning, and I mean, I always thought big. So I wrote to Bill Clinton and I wrote to Nelson Mandela.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow.
And in less than a month, I got a response from Bill Clinton and Nelson Mandela's foundation at the time. Mr. Mandela, President Mandela, was still alive, and they all agreed that they would come and support this thing. What's my protocol procedure? And at 23, I'm like, what do you mean my protocol procedure? I want you to come and be one of the speakers to this regional event.
What else do I have to do?
So they said, no, you need to reach out to your government. So I reached out to the Ministry of Health at the time, Ministry of Tourism, explaining the idea I had, or the vision to do this thing. And I remember having to go to a meeting maybe 6:30 in the morning to meet Minister Wilchcombe. At the time, Ministry of Tourism was in the Hilton. And I got there in the morning, there were so many other persons waiting to meet him. And when I got in, I explained what I want to do and that I have these people coming in. And initially, the reaction was great. This would be good.
Wow.
And then about 2 weeks later, after I already went back and told these big names, we can go ahead, we're going to start making the arrangements. I got a phone call from a lady, I think she was the director at the time, who said, the ministry is not going to be involved anymore. And I was like, why? Like, why would you want to go on camera and tell the world that we have an HIV/AIDS problem in the Bahamas? With big names like Bill Clinton, Nelson Mandela traveling to the Bahamas. The last time he was here was after he was released and he came to Linden, And I got so frustrated that I wanted to cancel the event. So I had to then reach out to this person and said, I'm not able to make any arrangements to bring you in.
Wow.
So I had to downscale it. I didn't give up on it. I had to downscale it and still pull the event off. Nothing frustrated me more than the Minister of Health showing up to the event to take the stage at the opening.
Wow.
With BBC World there and these other news networks from around the region and internationally covering the event to take the stage and say, it's such a wonderful event we're doing. And I thought to myself, oh my God. And it turned me off a lot from getting involved with government officials. I would jump to 2009 when I launched the Junior Bar Committee at the Bar Association. At the time, my uncle was Wilbur H. Moss Jr. And really, in the legal profession, was a huge name, and I was training under him. And I realized that by 2009, having been called in 2003, I had already learned about 10 different areas of the law. And I would go to court and I'd see other lawyers who only know 1 or 2 areas. So I thought to myself, well, I have all this opportunity to make money from 10 different angles, but I'm sitting next to somebody in court who's confused about the one area of law that they're doing. So I'm trying to assist them, and I thought to myself, you know what, the Bar Association at the time wasn't doing frequent further educational training, so I'm going to go ahead and do it. I didn't ask the Bar Association, and I think that got me in some trouble. I loved then and still do love Ruth Bodabble, who was president, and before her I think was Wayne Monroe. So bucked heads between the two of them at some point on what I was doing, but eventually Ms. Bodabble reached out and said, listen, how much are you spending of your money to put on these workshops every month to teach these lawyers what you know? I said, I'm averaging about $3,000 a month.
Wow.
Ms. Bodabble says, and you're doing it where? I said, I'm booking the Hilton, because at the time the Bar Association didn't have facilities for us to host there.
Right.
So I was booking the Hilton, paying $3,000 and some of my money to try and teach lawyers. And she said the Bar Association will cover it. So there's a point in time that we booked, but then they came around, and it's been going on from 2009 to now. And then here comes our Carmichael. You have a vision to inspire people in the community to stop relying on a member of parliament to make a difference in their community where we live, where your MP doesn't live. You know, how do we educate ourselves? How do we patronize each other's businesses? How do we rebuild and implement that whole village mentality? And our Carmichael started, and then I had persons saying, what you doing this for? You know, you're not even the member of parliament.
That was going to be my next question. Why? Why do it?
Because I'll tell you the truth, and it's not a pretty story. I built my home out of pocket, and I would pull up to my home every day like I was in 2015 when I decided to launch it. I would press the remote, and my electric gate opened. And because of my profession, I was able to buy certain types of cars. So I was driving, at that time, probably my third BMW, and this one was a convertible, and I would hit the button on that car for the top to come up.
So why do you care about the people so much?
Because I knew how I grew up. I've never forgotten where I came from. And I realized the only difference with me and anybody around me is that I had inspiration and I had direction. And I've been trying to do that in every initiative, provide inspiration and direction. I think the average person doesn't need a hand out. No. They need a hand up. They need someone to inspire them and give them the direction to get where they need to go in life. So when I would pull up home and I would realize the comfort I had because of the inspiration and direction I've had. And I would see persons around me whose power was off, who was losing their homes, who was losing their cars. I thought something had to be done. And when I would speak to my neighbors, oh, we waiting for the MP to get back to us, and I thought, that's it. I'm going to organize this thing. So it took me about a month to organize the first Our Carmichael Initiative event, which was called Bingo and Breakfast in September 2015.
Right.
And the Saturday I was to have it. I think at that time we had Hurricane Joaquin. So I had to then notify everybody in the community, this is not going to happen, because while we have something to eat and we have these speakers to come and help us, there are people on Long Island, etc., who just lost their homes, who are flooded out, and we're going to redirect everything that we've raised to go and help them.
Right.
And I ended up going down there, but I met a lot of tension and discouragement from people doing Our Carmichael. So then I was on a community level, and then here comes We March. I always remember, here's a year later from Hurricane Joaquin. We're in October 2016.
And with We March, there was just so much people, you know, everybody saw the people, you know, in the newspapers, on the television, everybody saw the people. There was not one person that did not see how much persons marched. And, you know, I even think at one point I saw when someone tried to make a replica of that, they tried to duplicate that initiative. But let's talk about We March and what inspired that, and what was your goal with that?
October 6th, 2016, Hurricane Matthew had passed. So our entire community out of water, out of light, phone lines are down. And I remember waking up the next morning thinking, okay, the roof is still intact. We slept through the night. We have a lot to be thankful for. My wife was pregnant at the time with our second daughter. So I grabbed the 3-year-old and I said, we're going to the pump. So we took every 5-gallon bottle and bucket we could find in the house and in the yard, put them in our Jeep. And she and I drove around the community trying to find a pump. And we found one up West Carmichael. And when I pulled up to the pump, I saw what I felt at the time was the whole of Nassau. The whole of Nassau was at this pump trying to get water. So persons were sitting in their cars and their persons were standing up. So I took my little daughter out and we started taking the bottles and the buckets and lined up. And conversation sparked. And I realized two things that day. There, on the one hand, here was our people relying on the government to prepare them for a hurricane, notwithstanding what the country went through with Joaquin the year before and what we've been going through as a people with hurricanes in this region for however many years. People who are just constantly relying on the government. And on the other hand, here's a government who failed to prepare us and now to respond to a hurricane. And I said, then something has to be done. And for me, being a part of the Our Carmichael Community Initiative, the first thing that came to mind was a vision I had years ago that we need an effective local government in New Providence. So I went home that night. There was no power. Cell phones were back up. And I remember doing a post, there has to be a revolution at some point in this country for our people to be inspired, for them to have some direction, and for the government to get it. That we need to return power to the people and we need to make things better. Because at the time, I did not believe, 39 or 38 members of parliament were the solution for all of us. And I think we needed more people to come to the table and offer suggestions whose loyalty was not to party but to making a difference. So I made that call online saying, I'm hoping somebody would start this revolution and I don't have to fund it. And I meant that. About a week or two later, people were like, 200 and some people were like, yeah, somebody need to do this, somebody need to do that.
Wow.
And I'm like, yeah, who?
Right.
Who's going to step forward? I'm hoping someone step forward. I hope it's not my money that I have to spend to get somebody to start a revolution. And another week and nothing. And then I decided, okay, fine, I'm going to have to do this. And I remember saying to my wife, if I go out there and try and take on a government and bring to the government's attention the problems in this country and offer solutions, they're going to come for me. And my wife is Trinidadian. And she wanted to know, what do you mean come for you? And I said, well, in this country, come for you politically doesn't mean attack you violently. It means pull your finances. I said, so if I'm going to do this, it's going to affect us financially. And I remember my wife looked at our 3-year-old and rubbed her belly and she said, if you have to do what you have to do to make a difference in this country for our children, you do it. And it was no deep conversation. It was like, you do it.
So you have always had her support?
I've always had that support system in every initiative I've ever done. And she's like, you do it. And that's, I ended up going ahead with it. I got an email from somebody who was working in the Ministry of Tourism who added me to some group conversation and says, I have somebody who wants to fund a revolution.
Wow.
Anybody interested in going ahead and organizing? And I remember stepping up into that conversation, not knowing who these people were, and said, listen, I'm not prepared to have a conversation with anybody about taking an initiative. The person who wants to help finance it can't reveal who they are.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, as I've said from October 6th, I'm going to go ahead and just do this myself. If anyone's interested in helping me, please. And there's this word that has been in my mind and on the tip of my tongue from that day to now. And I will say on your show, it's pussyfooting. There were so many people who just pussyfoot. They know something needs to be done, and they're waiting for somebody to do it. And there are persons who said to me, okay, you go ahead, you do it. I can be in the back. And I said, no, I need someone to help. I need a support system. And all those people who were in that chat was just like, I mean, we could send some water and placards, but we ain't gonna be up there. And that's how We March got started. I chose the name We March because I was trying to inspire people and give a direction. I cannot march for you and your ideas and the things you need. You need to come and march for your issues. So I asked everybody, I'm not going to prepare placards for you with a message from me. You write why you are standing up for yourself and your children and your grandchildren.
Right.
My placard read for every single march, I march to return power to the people.
Right. Right.
That's what I want to do, return power to the people. I want to inspire them, give them some direction, but I believe the best way for me to do that is not to be the prime minister or to be the leader of any party. It would be for me to oversee implementing local government for the province, that we can divide this island into 4 or 5 districts. And we, the people in the districts, elect a mayor and a council. And that council determines whether we're going to put any more number shops in our neighborhood, any more liquor stores, ordinances that you can't have a party that runs after midnight, and if you want to have a party, you need a license of a party, that we'll introduce our own traffic system, where we can give tickets if you park double parked or you park in a handicapped spot. We'll have our own district magistrate court where we can fine persons in this area rather than sending someone to prison for a joint. We consider that a young man, you're going to pay a fine to this community, to this district. That money could be used for a library in the area, clinic in the area, you know, providing a fund for when a hurricane hits our area. So that's how We March got started. That was the intention for We March, for me to inspire people to stand up for themselves and give them some direction on how to stand up. So when I hear persons today say that we need you, it goes against everything I've been doing all my life. You don't need me.
Right.
I've shown you I'm nobody. My name is Ranard, Henfield. Do you know any Henfields prior to me? So I'm nobody. I am still nobody. I was nobody then, and I stood up. And I stood up for my reasons, and I've asked you to stand up for yourself.
Do you think, earlier in our conversation you mentioned, you know, that persons are dependent on the government, you know, that's embedded in us, you know, that's how some persons think, that's how they live, and they don't see anything else after that. But do you think that because of that, that some persons get angry when they don't see change right away? Do you think that because of that they think, okay, that you came in as this savior to save them, and you know they feel as if they're let down, when in actuality your vision was to inspire, your vision was to get the ball rolling, you know? And do you think that I know this is a lot of questions at once, but do you think that everything that you set out to do with We March, that when you look at the percentage going all the way up to 100%, do you think that you went at least 50% there?
Okay, so for the first question, you know, truth is every single Bahamian resident, expat knows we are people that's dependent on politics and government.
Correct.
That isn't something that started in the last year, 5 years, or 10 years. It's been going on for decades.
Right.
One of the reasons why I push the Our Carmichael Community Initiative is I'm trying to show persons you don't need government to do everything that you need to do in your life and your community. So here's Our Carmichael. Then there pops up Our Grand Bahama. Then Our North Eleuthera. And I'm seeing these things popping up now, and I'm working with these persons in different islands to make a difference in their communities. That's on the community level though. On the national level, We March was saying again, I need you to understand that you can make a difference. You just can't sit down and complain all day. You have to offer some solutions. Then you have to find people who are like-minded and work on those solutions.
And you have to be willing to step forward.
You have to be willing to step forward as well. So there are persons who would say, well, you step forward as a savior. We thought you were going to be the next prime minister. We thought you were going to form a party. We thought you were going to be this leader. I have never set out to be a leader. I don't want to lead anybody. I don't want to govern anybody. I don't want to be the member of parliament for any constituency. All I wanted to do was inspire people and give them some direction. So there are persons who will come up to me and say, you know, thank you. Up to this morning, a lady writes that says, you know, thank you so much for inspiring me. I'm paying more attention to politics and my country now because of Black Friday and Majority Rule Day. My husband is now paying attention. My children are paying attention. And we feel, I think her word was, brazen enough to speak up. And I thought to myself reading that, oh my God, she gets it. And I've heard thousands of persons who would walk up to me on the marches and would send me emails and call and come by the office. Or even here at the center, a lady came by at the center last week, said, you know, I've been following you, and this is my first time coming to the community center to see, oh, you're not just talk. You are still running a community center
Right.
here reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad with parents while children in another room having dinner and reading inspirational books. And I thought, oh, you listen to what the public say about someone and you form a perception, that's fine with me, but I don't care to go and correct public perception.
Correct.
The people who know me know what my vision is, what the purpose of We March and Our Carmichael is. But getting our people to move away from the reliance on one individual, one political party, or the government is going to take time. When I said earlier, my grandfather and my uncle taught me to think long term. I still do something my grandfather taught me from back in the 80s. And I did it up to this morning. It's plant seeds. So if you come to my yard, it's covered in trees. I plant the coconut trees, pumpkin, potato, cherry trees, etc. And I plant them not because I want to sit down and eat the coconut tomorrow, but I know in 20 years I'll be 58 years old and retiring. And I'm going to have coconut trees in my yard. And I'm going to have avocado trees in my yard and pumpkin, etc. I plant these things now knowing a sugar banana tree or plantain tree is going to take me 9 to 10 months. But I plant a seed today and I watch the ground. There's nothing happening, but I still water. I still weed around it.
Right.
My housekeeper wonders sometimes when she peels anything, do you want the seed? And of course I want the seed. I
Right.
plant
Don't
everything.
throw that away. Right.
I plant everything, but I because my grandfather taught me that, I do it today knowing it's not about the fruit that I'm growing or the vegetable. It's a life lesson. Things take time. You cannot march today like I did on Black Friday and expect Prime Minister Christie at that time to give us 33 demands.
Right.
There are people who march and thought, oh yeah, he now going to take us serious because we have 5,000, 6,000 people behind us marching. It was a wake-up call.
Correct.
I then said at that march, next, and I sit on a chair in Rawson Square to say, the next step from this is a think tank.
Right.
I want all
I saw
of you
that.
to come and I will announce the venue and offer your solutions to national issues. In about 4 days, Chris Mortimer, who was the deputy leader of the DNA at the time and somehow owns Galleria Cinema, reached out and says, okay, I'll provide the cinema for that. This is a great initiative. It crosses party politics. I will give you a cinema. And that room seats about 270 people. And when we got there, they had the big sign up, We March Think Tank, free of charge for us. And persons came in, we were there till 11 o'clock that night with persons offering solutions. I stood in front of the people that night, gave my suggestions and my ideas, and they came and they gave their own as well. But I said at the end of it, we will now put all these suggestions together, and when I go to march again, and I ask you to support that march and march for your issues, you're no longer just marching for a problem, you're marching with your solutions.
Right.
Offer your solutions. I don't want you marching on a problem. March for something.
Right.
Don't march against the government. You're marching for something. You're marching to make a difference. So when we march on Majority Rule Day, after all that back and forth with Bradley Roberts saying we're not going to march, the PLP will have Bay Street and trying to frustrate us. When we march, we stood there in Pompey Square and offered the solutions. Those solutions were provided. The government ignored them again. There are people who say, okay, well then we need to riot. And I thought to myself, no.
Right. It's not
You're
about
not
that.
going to change what has been going on for 40 plus years
In a day.
in one day on Black Friday or another day on Majority Rule Day. What I'm trying to do is plant a seed in leaders and politicians. The people are paying attention now.
They are. They definitely are.
We are offering solutions now. And we won't tolerate anybody who is not consulting with us on hearing our solutions. And I think I made that clear at the march when persons asked, are you going to run? I said, I'm not going to run. You're going to form a party? I'm not going to form a party. I had persons around me who came to me, this whole We March thing, thinking, this little naive boy, we're going to control him and get him to run in our party. And I will say on your show, just about every political party came to meet me.
I saw that. I saw that.
Just about every political party came to my office. I always remember one of them, I was so disrespected, walks in, two of them, and they bow in front of me, in front of my staff. The Lord sent us to you for you to take over our party.
Oh, they
and
used
lead
the
our
Lord's
party."
name.
Yes. And that got me so mad, and I said, do not involve God in your politics. I'm not going to come and join your party. I'm not going to lead your party. You don't need to step down from your party. I'm not interested in running your party. I want to inspire people. to stand up and offer solutions. I want to now inspire those persons who are offering themselves as candidates to be people who want to make a difference for our people and who are not there for the power and the fame. I want them to make a difference. And that's all I need to do. I don't need to lead. I just want to inspire people to make a difference.
Do you see your wanting to inspire coming out a lot in your Our Carmichael community initiative as well? Do you see that growing and moving in the direction that you want it to grow in?
Yeah, definitely. You know, Giselle Bailey is one of the board members on Our Carmichael. And Giselle in the Our Carmichael boardroom chat group changed the icon from the Our Carmichael logo to a quote. And it said, to the public, they see a good team, but to us, we're family. And I've seen these complete strangers come surround me since September 2015 that have become family, so much so that three of them are now my youngest daughter's godparents.
Wow.
Because we've become family. And I've seen ordinary people, like the slogan for Our Carmichael is the power of a community.
Right.
But I also put underneath that ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Because I've seen ordinary residents become activists. I've seen neighbors who were just driving up and down the street, ignoring each other, now board members, now community activists. So I see Our Carmichael going down the path that I hoped it would go, which is more than me, one person in a community of 50,000 people trying to make a difference. So you now have 30 plus persons,
right,
as opposed to 3 years ago when it was one person. So that's going down the right direction. For We March, I see organizations with We March now, and I keep pushing them, saying to them, stop relying on me, one person, to stand up in the Senate and speak for every civil society organization. Do not give your power to one person. We've been doing this to people for too long. I need each of you to issue a press release on anything that concerns you. And I'll reiterate your press release and your concerns in the Senate. And the other day, I called into a talk show, Adrian Francis, who I've known for so many years. I would listen to his talk show, I would listen to Lester Cox, and I would listen to Shivago Lang in the afternoon. And Adrian was on, not knowing that I was listening, and said to his guests that something about vision, that I asked Ranard Henfield after the march, what's next?
right,
And he said he don't know. And my eyes went wide open, my breath stopped. I was like, what? Publicly, with every media in front of me, I stood in that chair in Rawson Square and said, after this march will be a think tank.
correct,
At the think tank that I pulled off with my team, I stood up there in front of the crowd with cameras running live and said, here, I'm going to organize the next march and present the solutions. I came to that march on Majority Rule Day and we discussed the solutions. And people stood there, notepads, recorders thinking, oh yeah, that's a good idea, that's a good solution. So to hear this man, because you want a sensational show,
right,
and because right now there's 5 or 6 people saying, oh, we don't like him anymore. Or March is trying to organize something that's not happening. Kendall Cook is trying to organize something and it's not getting that support. We can't stand this Ranard Henfield guy. And I had to call in. And I said, when did I ever tell you that? When I recited just what happened. At the march, I said think tank. At the think tank, I said next march. The next march presented solutions. Why would you say that? And I said on that show, you are entitled to your own opinion of me, and I'm not going to correct anybody's opinion.
right,
But you're not entitled to your own facts. And the facts are there. You're not entitled to your own facts. You can have your opinion of me, that's fine. But the facts are there. I tried to inspire people. They were inspired. They stood up. I asked them now to come to the table and offer solutions. They offered solutions, and I presented those solutions. You know, and there was a guest on that show who was trying to organize the bank protest. And I reached out to her. She was never part of We March. I reached out to her and said, you know, here's the bill that we're going to be debating in the Senate. It's on the credit reporting bill. Have you read it, and what's your organization's concerns? They're not a part of We March, but they're still a civil society organization fighting for some cause. And when I reached out to her, she said she had not read the bill. And I thought to myself then, your organization exists for the whole point of addressing banking issues.
Right.
This is the only bill from this administration in 9 months that addresses banking. I'm going to send it to you. Please read it and let me know what your concerns are. When it's time for me to present to the Senate, I reached out to her and said, have you read the bill? She didn't reply to me. A week later, after I sat up for 2 nights and did what that organization should have done, I drafted a presentation on the credit reporting bill and basically said to the government, while this may be heading in the right direction for the banks, there are people in Grand Bahama going to wake up one morning because they've been unemployed for so long, their credit report or their credit score is going to be a negative. Please take that into consideration. The bill allows banks to own shares in the credit reporting bureau. I don't think that should happen. You can't be the credit reporting bureau that tells other banks not to lend and you own the shares in that. And the government leader at the time would have said, well, 49% of the shares could be sold to banks, 51% to anybody else. And I thought to myself, if I buy 2% of the shares and you buy 49 and the banks own 49, really the bank can dictate what happens. And I expressed all these concerns, and a week later I reached out to her, or she reached out to me asking if I would be interested in speaking to some meeting on the bill. And I said, everything you need to know is in this video from the Senate and in my speech. I reached out to you and you never even responded. And she said, oh, I thought I sent you an email. I never got an email. But that same person was on this talk show, not knowing that I have the whole email thread.
But how does all of this, you talked about everything that you've gone through, with persons, with We March, with, the persons wanting to push another movement as well, with just everything that you've been involved in. Has that, and thank you so much for pouring out yourself on this show, has that affected any of your family life? Any pressure coming from that side, because you have to put a lot of yourself into the efforts that you do for the people, and the people, whether they appreciate it now or appreciate it later, they will appreciate it at the end of the day. Even if it's just one person, there will be appreciation for the efforts that you have put forward. How has that affected your family life? You have a beautiful wife, you have 2 daughters now. How does that work?
I think the first pressure point for me, as far as family, came when my mother works for government. So when I was organizing the first march, nobody knows the Henfield family prior to We March.
No, correct.
Nobody. So then they find out my mother works for government. I walk into the place where my mother works. My mother had an office with a view to the front. Once they found out that she was my mother was moved from her office down to the back.
Are you serious?
And when my mother called me and told me, she said, stand. Don't worry about me. I get no old anyway. Let them do what they want to do with me. But you stand. I was on that phone, tears and mad.
Right, because that's your mother. You only got one of them.
Wanting to cry and mad. And here's my mom, who it was done to, saying, stand. And then there were days when the threats to kill me, etc., and the gangs coming. And
you had threats to kill you?
Yes. And I've had 3 gangs come and reach out to me and say, listen, they're asking us to take you out so that you don't do these marches.
So they warned you to stop?
Yeah.
They told you, stop?
No, the warning was not to stop.
No, from the gangs.
The gangs were being told to take me out.
Right, so, and they,
the
out
gang
of
said,
consideration for you,
yes,
they reached out to you.
The gang said, we're not going to do it.
Wow.
To say, you are standing up for our people. And I remember this guy's words. He said, $10,000 ain't no money for us to take you out. He said, it is offering us real money. We wouldn't be having this conversation.
This happened in real life?
Real life. $10,000 ain't no money to take you out. But if they was offering us real money, we'd take you out. But for what you standing for, I always remember the words, can't diss you. Another gang leader calls and says, listen, I need you to meet. I didn't know, calls from a private number, who are you? Listen, you need to meet to XYZ, and he explains, so I go and meet. And says,
you actually went?
Yeah, I have no choice, people can tell me where I live. I have a wife and a daughter at the time.
Right.
I had no choice. It's either I go or they're going to come to the house. So I went. And same thing, basically said, we're not going to do it because you're standing up for the people. Gang leaders were saying they were getting contracts under the previous administration to do all kind of work around the island in construction. And that they know they would lose those contracts by refusing to do anything to me. But so be it. And they lost those contracts because they said, you are awakening the people and standing up for us and encouraging us to stand up. We're not going to do it.
And your burden for the people burned even stronger.
I don't know. I don't see it as a burden. I think I know my purpose in life. And I always remember I made the joke one time. My father prayed for me. One time I went to visit them during this whole March thing. And him and my mom's view was that they thought when they had me, they were having a son. I was for them. But not knowing that there was some calling on me that someday I would do these things. And my father's view is like, they may do the worst to you, but you pray to God and get your soul right. And once you're doing God's will, you have nothing to worry about. But my parents had come to the realization that they may lose their son. So then I found myself going to the insurance company and paying my life insurance up to make sure if they do kill me, at least my wife can pack up my one daughter at a time and run out of town. So my family safety was an issue. That I was moving my wife and daughter around. There were persons coming in our yard, and they were terrified. I remember one day my wife crying, who had encouraged me all along and being my support base, crying and saying she can't do this no more.
Right.
And you think like, okay, I have to stop. And 4 hours later, she comes back and she said, for the sake of our children, do what you have to do. But she was terrified.
How do you want your kids to look up to you? At the end of the day, when they said, when they say, that's my father, that's my daddy. I don't know, well, you mentioned at the time your daughter was 3, but I'm sure she's able to say daddy now.
Yes, of course,
she says daddy all the time.
Yeah.
But, when you look at your little baby now and your older daughter, what do you want them to say when they say, that's my daddy?
I think the same thing that the 5-year-old says and sees now, that her daddy cares. And we, my wife and I, we raise her right now at this very moment. Both of them are with my wife at a old folks home in Pinewood, where they spent the last few days packaging items to take to senior citizens. And every week they do community service. And I think they will remember me and their mom as somebody who cared more than for ourselves, because we've had a comfortable life. And we spent a lot of time trying to inspire and direct people again to better. So I want my daughters to remember me as someone who cared for the least and respected everybody on the same level. We would drive, and my daughter doesn't believe in seeing anybody on the road walking. And she says, Daddy, we have to stop for that person and get them a ride. Because as far as she's concerned,
your little girl.
Yes, as far as she's concerned, you help everybody else. That person's walking, you give them a ride. Or she comes home, she says, Daddy, why some people don't have food? And why some people don't have a car? And why some people, and you have to explain to her.
She has a lot of questions.
And I tell her, this is why we do what we do. So she comes to the community center, and she was here for the Christmas when we were giving grocery out. And she was passing the grocery. She came a day later when we were giving toys out to the kids. And I remember she walked in, she saw a center filled with toys, about 300 kids. And she said, oh, Daddy, can I have one? And I had to say that in front of everybody, because we made a line when we came. I had to say to her, you can't have it, baby, because Daddy can afford to buy you something. This is for people who can't afford. So we had these 300 toys and bikes to give out. And my daughter stood in that room out front here, giving toys to kids, saying, Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas. And when she left that evening, it was just me and her in the car, and she said, Daddy, you saw that smile on her face, she's so happy for the doll. And she's like, I'm happy we help people, and God bless them. She didn't say it's donations from companies and residents in this community. She saw God provided for us to be able to give to people.
Is all of that a part of raising a leader? Do you think, exposing your kids to this, allowing them to help out in the community center, allowing them to just touch and feel everything that you're doing, is all of that a part of raising leaders?
We actually think we're raising activists.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're raising activists.
Okay.
My wife is an activist. I'm an activist, and due to the many days I've had to neglect my family because of activism, my wife now has her own initiative, Random Acts of Kindness, like I said, and they're out doing their thing
I heard
now.
about that.
And we're raising activists. We're not raising leaders. We're raising activists. And I don't want my kids to aspire to lead anybody or to be leaders. I want our kids to do the same thing we do as parents: inspire, help, and provide direction for people to do better.
Okay. Along the way, when we're talking about you touched on your support system.
Yes.
Do you think that that's an important thing to keep as you move forward?
Yes, definitely. My family support system is great, and I have to divide that into two. There's my blood family, and there's my friends who are like family. And you have persons like Jason, Giselle, Estina, Candace, Patrina. I don't know how I would have been able to do anything on my own. People always talk about our Carmichael is so successful. Our Carmichael is successful not because of Ranard. Our Carmichael is successful because of the team. We March wasn't successful because of Ranard. We March was successful because everybody realized that they needed to stand up for themselves, that they couldn't just sit back anymore and not pay attention. We were getting ready to go into an election. And at a time when the country felt that was the worst government ever, they were spending money like crazy, it was corrupt, and people were still sitting down quiet. Just going online with a fake name on Facebook and doing a post, calling to some talk show, sending a text into a talk show, but wouldn't dare put their face out there and say, my name is so-and-so and I stand up for this. I am marching for this. And my support system made all that possible. You could remove me today and our Carmichael will run. I stepped down from the junior bar community that I founded back in 2009 when I was getting ready to launch our Carmichael. And that is still running today. Tara Knowles doing a great job with a team around her to pull off the events every month. And again, support system are crucial. I think a lot of people failing when they try to do things because they're trying to be some leader. I think the initiatives I've been a part of on the vision that I've put out there has been successful because I've always tried to inspire people, and the team has always been the most important aspect or ingredient.
Well, I definitely think that, if my opinion counts for anything, I definitely think that you are the community activist, and I think that you're doing a great job with Our Carmichael. I think that you did a great job with We March, and I think that both of those movements have been one to move the people forward, and that's the thing that we have to keep in mind. Now, I just want to ask you one thing, with taking into consideration everything that you've said and for pouring out yourself. And before I say that, let me just say, in trying to get you on this show, we would have gone back and forth with letters. Well, actually, I wrote one letter to you. And in our communications, I kept saying, Senator Ranard Eric, Senator, everything was just Senator. And you told me, you said, Shakia, my name was and will always be Ranard Eric Henfield. And, that just made me even want to meet you more, and I appreciate that. I appreciate you being so relatable. I appreciate you, like I said in the beginning, sitting down and being willing to have a conversation with me. And I appreciate you just, coming down to my level. So I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for that.
If I may, I would go out and people would say, Senator, 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 and I don't turn around. And the moment they say Ranard or Mr. Henfield, I would look. And I would do the same thing I did to you in a private email. I would do to people publicly. My name is not Senator. My name is Ranard. Prior to We March, it'll be Ranard after the Senate position is revoked. I don't live for position. I am me. This is me. But for your interview today, I would be in a jeans and a t-shirt at that old folks' home. And I know as a public figure, we as a people expect a public figure to dress a certain way, to carry themselves a certain way. I'm not here trying to be a public figure. I am an activist, and I'm not going to change who I am to try and make people feel comfortable with the title that's now attached to my name.
Correct.
I am me, and I will always be who I am.
And we're going to ask you this last question, and I want you to look into the camera with the answer. Would you say that in 2018, as the community activist, you are on the rise?
My name is Ranard Henfield, and I am on the rise.